Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Thursday, January 29th, 2026. It's 1:05 p.m. and we are continuing our review of FY27 budget information. We have with us Secretary and CFO of the Agency of Digital Services to talk with us. And just want to also welcome Representative
Scott Campbell.
Campbell. I don't know why I want to say Johnson all the time. Campbell. From the Committee on Digital Services and IT, Energy and Digital Services. I'm doing well today. Anyway, you are our liaison, and Marty is the one that has this budget too. So anyway, that's where we are. So if you want to introduce yourselves and take it away, thank you.
For the record, Denise Hughes. I am the Agency Secretary for Digital Services and the CIO.
And I am Kate Slocum, the Chief Financial Officer for the Agency of Digital Services.
Great. Welcome.
So I know we had an opportunity last week to come in and provide you kind of with an overview snapshot of what we talked about last year and some of the things that we've done. And now we are going to go through this year's budget request for FY27. Would you like me to take this slide? Sure. Perfect. I do believe that this is a recap, so we can gloss over this if you would like, but this really aligns to the understanding of where you're going to see the changes through the budget, because this does look different this year than it has in years past, because we were moving through that evolution of change, focusing on those 4 key strategic areas of user experience, standards, predictability, and simplifying to reduce complexity. And those 4 bubbles that you're seeing is around, we've made changes in our leadership structure, our organizational structure. We have built a service-based budgeting model here that you're going to see today. We have portfolio alignments that you're not going to see articulated in the budget asks specifically, but you'll start seeing more detail about that as we get into 27, if this is the budget that's approved. We've done the portfolio alignment based on organizational structure first, not budget. And then the services creation, which is also mapped into one component of the budget that is considered to be core enterprise services. Or enterprise
services. Yeah. So I definitely am going to have some questions about those things. It may be too early right now, but you forewarned. A few questions around
That sounds great. I love that. Sounds great.
We're excited for those questions. So this next slide, I think the committee is pretty familiar with. We try to share this every year. It's our overview. One of our dashboards we like to share that kind of gives a snapshot of the agency over the last year. It shows things like our total budget ask. So this year we are asking for $96.5 million in total to support the agency. But it also shows our breakdown of funds. We have more in-depth fund set to support our agency now. You'll see that there's a few new names of funds on the list. Previously, we were primarily funded under the Information Technology Fund, which is an internal service fund. Now we have a couple new internal service funds that will be supporting our budget, and that really, we'll get into that a little bit later, but that really is to help define the areas of recovery, and the intent is to offer more transparency into what's going into digital services.
And the goal there in that is that we will come in here and talk about budget, but that's only a third of the activity. So we've got budget expenditure and recovery when you're dealing with an internal service fund or an internal service agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to make sure that as we build budget modeling, that it matches our expenditures and consumption of IT right down to the ability to do full recovery on that, which is where I think that we have compartmentalized them in the past, and now we're really trying to bridge a gap between all of them.
Okay. And I think that's where some of my questions are going to lie.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Get through the overview then.
Another item I want to highlight on this chart is the savings. Annually, we report on our savings to date. So in the 9 years that our agency has been in existence, we have saved the state now over $50 million. It's either in direct savings or cost avoidance from our efforts of working with agencies around their IT needs. Can you,
Is that on here somewhere?
Bottom right.
56.6.
Can you adjust it?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Last week, we had a different number, and I just want to make sure that we address that before.
Yeah, so when we first had put this out, this is in our annual report, and we had reported about $2.5 million less of that number. We did some last minute reviews and we realized that we had forgotten about some of the savings that had been identified through the IT modernization funded project of network modernization. So we've been able to bring on a vendor for infrastructure services, and we've identified $2.5 million in savings in 1 year alone as a result of that procurement.
So how do you know the savings compared to what? So I don't.
Compared to spend in the past for
Okay.
similar,
So
yeah, for that service in the past. So
reducing expenses kind of thing.
Reducing expenses, reducing contracts. We have found that we have contracts of duplicate services, that if we are, let's say, 20% consumed on one and 20% consumed on another, that's not cost effective for the state. So if we minimize down to one contract instead of two, we spend half as much and force consumption to be greater than a 20%. So we're not getting a return in that space. And so we've done that both incrementally and intentionally across what we would see as core enterprise services. We've not tackled that yet in the field services space.
So when you're contracting, do you have a good pool of applicants for those? Is there good depth of that, breadth of that pool?
we have a pretty robust contracting process. Not only do we post publicly, but we reach out to vendors that we know are operating in the space. Those that we have worked with before, but those that we haven't worked with, but we know are operating maybe for another state or for a municipality.
And we have some diversity in that space. Over the last year, Kate's been working on building up what we're calling vendor relationship management in her business office, so that we can make sure we've got diversity both in the Vermont businesses that we can work with, as well as national or global businesses that specialize in particular areas, because we are supporting statewide.
Great. Awesome. Move on to the next slide. So again, some highlights, and I'll let Denise speak to some of them, but when we talk about the budget, we, like I had just gone over, we are looking at a $50 million savings overall from 2017 to 2025 for the years that we've been tracking. And just the last calendar year, it was $5 million savings that we have been able to validate. We want to talk about the highlights.
So, yeah, pardon me for, this is not my area, but Mike, you go ahead and then I'll ask a question.
Looking in your list of successes. AHS, CDDIS. People, can you tell me what?
It is part of a two-phased child development division services. So it's their systems that they're running internally. We're already in phase 2, but the completion of phase 1 was a success there.
Thanks. And in general, AHS has been using a pretty old system. Where are we with that?
In the so I love acronyms. I'm still learning them, which is why I looked to her when I was like making sure I don't say the wrong words for the letters, but SSMIS, I think you're talking about, which is the child welfare system. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the whole.
There's a lot of
I know
systems
there's,
in AHS.
and it's all old.
A lot of it is old, some of it is not. And some of the old stuff works really well, and some of the old stuff does not work really well. So from just a tech lens standpoint, we have some significant focus on the child welfare system, and that is in the final stages of contract, let's say review negotiations, and that project will kick off imminently, which is one of the most critical systems right now. But there are a lot.
Yeah.
Could you give us an example of, something that you've done that has contributed to the $5 million of savings? Just to give us an idea of where some of those savings may have come from.
Sure. The beauty in the annual report is we actually list all of that so that you can see the cumulative list. What it isn't going to show is on the networking side, where we were able to find that savings on both hardware of network infrastructure as well as some of the circuitry that we did in the consolidation of circuits. But some of the other savings was.
Some of the savings are around better license management, so identifying where unused licenses are for some of our enterprise products and letting go of that stuff. There's been, we stood up a ACCD in the last year, and that present with automated call distribution system. And that- ACD, I'm sorry, not ACCD, ACD. And that moved more towards true consumption based rather than the old model, which was licensing based.
There's personnel time,
Reduced.
reduction of the personnel time.
Yep.
Thank you.
So last year, I don't know if this is the right place or not, so forgive me, but we're talking about savings and all of that sort of thing. Last year, we gave you $7 million in the budget and then another $8 million that the contingent that you were able to use because we had enough money to do that. So the $15 million that had been originally asked for with regard to the SLA and the 18-month delay and bill back, yada.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, have you spent all that money? Where do you stand on that whole project? Or maybe you're talking about that later, but
We are going to talk about it later. We're going to go to slide 7.
Yeah, so in slide 7, you'll see in 26, that first bar represents what we are now calling CES, Core Enterprise Services. In the past, it was the ADS allocation.
we're in with these colors. So blue.
So the yellow is the 15 million
Okay.
above the blue. So blue was allocation as 26, 15, the 15 million was the yellow. And if you recall, so SLA is the charge charge in the future fiscal for consumption in the current fiscal.
Right.
So it's the credit card model, I like to call it.
Yeah.
It's a deficit spend model.
Right.
And if we were to move what would be fundamental foundational services that everybody's getting charged, but they're getting charged in a future fiscal year, they would, in that transition year, be charged twice. And so
Right.
that was avoiding that charge. And so that's where that was applied to. And you can see that that investment at the 15 actually netted the results that we were looking for. So you see some of the demand went down. And then you're seeing some of the overall ADS budget went down. So that's a component to explain some of the budget reduction. There's other things, but the yellow represents that one-time 15. And so that got us a little bit more leveled to where core enterprise services would need to be as a foundational allocation. That's a lot more appropriate of what core services are for 12,000 users and all the agencies and departments across government.
So I've heard you use core enterprise services, and I think I've heard you use allocation. Are those the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
But allocation is what we used to call it. And now we're calling it core enterprise services. So it is still an allocation-based model, but this is why in 27, you're seeing the light blue on top, because in our budget this year, we for the first time showed general fund. So there is a $9 million general fund recommendation to cover a quarter of the cost. It's just under a quarter of the cost of what core enterprise services is or allocation. So that reduces the per user rate to the agencies as we work through the transition to this new model.
So I think what I'm hearing is you need general fund because you aren't recovering your costs from the agencies.
I think there was a recommendation from finance and management as far as how the costs were spread across the 14 categories. So this is something I think finance and management could probably speak to, but ADS has never held general fund.
Yeah, this is a big deal for us. That's
a big
almost
deal.
$1 million of general fund that we've never put into ADS. But what it sounds like though, is that you're not charging enough to fully recover your costs, that's in the general fund.
100%. In a chargeback model, that is inherently the problem with a chargeback model. And we're charging back over 92% of the IT services in prior to
Yeah,
the FY 27 year. And so not all of those services can be recovered, which is why I was saying we can't decouple budget from expenditure to recovery. So we, on slide 9, actually show the breakout of where the funding source is. So what finance management did, and this is where I'd rather than speak to the details of the numbers, so we
Okay.
don't see what happens in other agencies' business offices.
yeah.
So if money is allocated or spending authority is allocated to other agencies
Yeah.
or anything, we have, ADS has zero visibility into that. We don't know where the funding source is coming from, but what they did was they looked at what we were charging. I mean, we've spent 2 years pulling the data and numbers on this. And they looked at, out of all of these areas, general fund is already paying for this. But then you use special funds and you use, revenue, or you'll use federal dollars to pay for some of it too, depending on who the agency is. So in order for them to make it clean across the board, they took what they were able to show as already existing general fund that exists within the agencies, and then they pulled it under an ADS funding source instead. So you should see that, I'm assuming that $9 million reduction in
So
what,
you're thinking across the
It was a shift.
administration, it should be a net neutral,
yes,
except,
100%.
so it's net neutral within the general fund itself.
Yes.
Okay, I will ask them that question. It sounds like we may need to get them in here. So, but what would happen if you just raised the rate?
Great question. So the rate is only tied to timesheet billing, so that's only one of the recovery models. And I ran an analysis, just, food for thought. What if we did this, right? Looking backwards, which is hindsight's always 2020. The rates in 2017 were set at $84 and $80. If you looked at the rates and increased the rates at the percentage that the budget was increasing year over year, we would be at $114 and $119 today,
Uh-huh.
giving you back $70,000 to general fund
Yeah.
this year. The rates weren't touched. I wasn't here. I can't speak to why.
Yeah.
But it is something that every year we have discussed that this is needed because realistically going into FY 26, we show a $7 million deficit because the cost of timesheet billing is one number. Our ability to recover is a difference of $7 million. We can't recover for what the true cost of those resources are.
Because you're not charging rates that are higher.
We don't have the ability to through the rates. And that's only one
Rate.
Ultimately, it's a decision from finance and management as to whether or not rates, and there's a lot that falls into that. They have to look at the availability of funding for other offices around permitting or federal awards that are available. So it's certainly not something that's taken lightly, but we can recommend, and the decision comes from somebody.
But you don't get to make the decision.
Right.
Okay, Wayne?
So I want to look at this graph now, the blue bars, what are the, what's,
So the blue bar over time is allocation, and that's the word that we use. So that's been pretty flat since
So the-
ADS was created.
so the allocation was flat and your demand and your budget just kept going up. So you got 10 million, the yellow, and your demand and your budget decreased, but we don't know the magnitude of it. Is that a significant magnitude of decrease? And I'm assuming that demand is time, people's time, is that,
That's some of it.
that's budget
That's some of
time?
it. I think we're jumping around the slides, which is good because then, so I would go back to slide 6. And so demand is made up of 3 categories. SLA is one of those categories, and that is basically the things that the foundational platforms and solutions that we offer that everybody can be a consumer in,
So your hardware and software.
hardware, software. And there is resources built into that cost, but not from a timesheet billing necessarily. So it's just really the cost of the resource and the capacity. So SLA plus is every individual agency's consumption of those services beyond what we're saying is baseline. So if somebody says, that's great that you've got 2 fiber lines coming into our office building for redundancy, but we don't want double redundancy. We want triple. We're going to charge them for the triple, and that'll show up in SLA. Timesheet is the other third of that. So that's both for project-based time on IT projects, or it is the embedded teams. So that's the old, kind of that old embedded model.
So that decrease in demand, the demand is represented by time, less time that's required from your staff, or is demand also use of the system?
A little bit of both. So we took the resources that were redundant in field. So if somebody was doing desktop support or help desk services only for one agency, but we've already said, no, that's IT Foundations, that's core enterprise services. We moved those resources over core because now they can support everybody. And they're not just supporting one. And the agencies that said, no, we want our dedicated support, they are still going to show up in timesheet billing.
Those bars represent like on the budget bar proportional to your total budget.
Yes.
Thanks.
John?
The reason for not wanting that to be more centralized, just because of the
It's just how we always did things.
agency,
Just how it always was done. And so as we start centralizing the services and start looking at quality and equitable service for everybody, this is why we've done that, is everybody needs to have these services because it was creating some significant have and have nots. And it was delaying projects, delaying supportability. And we need to be able to manage to where that is and fix that. And that's what we've done.
That's better.
It is better.
Yeah.
Yes. And you'll actually hear people say, well, when are you going to make the change? Oh, we made it in July.
That's always.
We didn't charge for it, right? But the $15 million was. So we,
The 15.
yeah,
So jumping around again, if we could go back a page.
this is good. This is totally how I operate. So jumping is perfect.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
going back to
I would
this
say
organization. Because the ERP thing has showed up every year in budget adjustment or the budget, and we noticed it wasn't in budget adjustment. And in fact, you weren't in budget adjustment this year.
No, I wasn't. I don't know.
Why did that happen? And then tell us about these. So how come you weren't in budget adjustment?
I don't know. I think that's a good question for finance management. And so interestingly enough, as we've like uncovered all of the terms that we use for everything, the existing system that finance and management and Department of Human Resources uses for Vision and BTHR,
Yeah.
they call ERP.
Right.
That's already an existing team. So what we're asking right now when we see ERP coming up is this the old one? Or is this the project that's the IT mod project?
Right.
And so there is a distinction between the two because those are two separate efforts, initiatives, systems, and it is confusing.
But isn't this
So this is
one?
the new one.
Well, and the thing is that we allocated this money.
So
Marty, you might have been on, I mean.
Oh,
there's
there's two
years ago.
allocations. There's
7.8 million?
one that is, Yeah.
there's $12.8 million that was directly appropriated to agency administration with general funds. You might have remembered it was originally ARPA and then
Yes.
so the general fund.
Yeah.
So actually, a number of these projects had a first round appropriation that was directly appropriated to those agencies. And then this funding is to pick up in later phases. And we are actually, if you look at the ERP project, we're at the cusp of switching over to this funding source. for
so
that
we'll start seeing expenditures consumed with this appropriation. This
But this appropriation we did a few years ago.
Yes.
It's just been sitting there being carried forward?
We went live with the project last year, about this time last year. And so we've been on track consuming from the AOA appropriation first.
Right. Okay.
So this one was appropriated as part of the finance effort specifically, but it's a very complex project.
Yeah.
So we've been the IT consultant from JFO has been very plugged in on this. So it's showing in all of those status reports and updates, but we are about at the point where we're cutting over to the next half of the funding.
You just clarify, you weren't here when Harvey Merrill was in here.
Right, I missed
From
that.
Finance and Management, and he discussed how they have completed the first portion of this, and on his budget, it was 1.8 million. The budgeting portion of the ERP and how the new budget forms are different and how it all flows through.
Yes.
And, he remarked that it was much easier to use and they were able to get onto it in time. And, it was on time, on budget, and it's delivering the results they want. But it's the very first part of the big ERP that
Right.
we talked about.
Right.
As other things get implemented, then this finance or the budgeting part will get integrated with finance and with HR and those kinds of things. And so they will gain the benefits of our
Right.
system. Right now, it's great, but it doesn't really bring all those other features in yet, but it will. But that was the first part
Right.
of that
Right.
big project.
So the money was set aside
Right.
well before it actually needed to be used.
I think it's been used,
Well, the 11.8, you have nothing.
correct. That's the other half of the
That we
funding.
did, what was it, a couple of years ago? Go ahead.
Just make sure everybody remembers. It was appropriate probably like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
but we actually didn't get approval for the funds until a year.
It has to be
Yes.
approved by
Right,
the HR.
right.
So we didn't actually get it until about a year.
We got approval,
It was like December 25.
Okay, but it was set aside then, okay.
But before you actually implement the program, you need to go all through all of this business
Yes.
plan to make sure you know what you want and that sort of thing.
Right.
And you do your business process to make sure what we want the program to do. And as Hardy described, it's a configuration process as opposed to a customization process.
Right.
But you have to spend time doing that
Yes.
business.
And we-
Right, before you get the money.
Plug in the branded view.
Right.
we want to make sure we have the money before we go out to RFP
Yes.
or sign any contracts.
Just as a point of reference, they had a name for that new system of replacing Vision, that
Yes.
Hardy. What was the name? Just
Workday.
Workday, just a point of reference that you remember Workday. It's the replacement for the Vision system, right?
Right, and then there's adaptive planning or something.
Adaptive is a module within Workday.
That's the budgeting
budgeting
module, right? So we had Vantage, which was
Right.
an independent standalone product, and we have VTHR, which is its own standalone system, but the same publisher as Vision.
Okay,
They're just two separate systems. And now we've got one that talks to each other, or is supposed to talk to each other in all of those different areas for everybody to automate a lot of what we spend a lot of time on spreadsheets with today.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this, my understanding, having watched this for a while, is that when I first got here, before that, we had a lot of, I think I've mentioned this the last time you were here, we had a lot of digital things that just sort of went. It didn't work. We had DMV, we had Judiciary, Health Connect, we had all kinds of things. Everybody was trying to customize it. The state's too small to customize anything anyway. But the point was that all of these things now are taking the time. And it takes a couple of years of the planning. It takes a couple of years for the actual implementation. You'll do a little bit at a time and see how that works. And then you have the next thing and you'll see how that works. And that's the way we really should do IT and ERPs. Because
Oh, yes.
ERPs are pretty, now the question is,
Design for what it's gonna look like in 5 years, because what you need in 5 years is different than what you need.
yeah, and when you want to buy, you don't want to customize, you
Configure.
you configure.
Right,
It's on the cloud. And the issue also is that we had an ERP. Is this going to include the ERP stuff that we talked about for Medicaid that was like 30 years old, 10 years ago? Or is that a whole other different ERP?
There are components to the federal fund model that will be built into this. So any of the foundational finance operations that government is responsible for will have that in there. But with the volume of activity happening over AHS, there are systems that they are implementing right now that are resolving some of those issues.
Right, so it's not necessarily part of the CRP. It won't be a Workday product. It will be
An adjacent or connected system.
complementary.
Yes, but as far as the federal fund reconciliation or the federal fund reporting, the Workday system will be able to accommodate and account for that for everything that they have going on. So if there's a new federal program that comes forward, they will see that represented under the Workday system from a budget and expenditure standpoint and a recovery. But any of that service activity that has to be done by AHS to whoever the providers are or the systems, that will all happen outside of Workday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So the rest of these, we've seen some of them. So is the DMV project actually done now? It's a long time, right?
It was a couple of years. It was a very successful project, a couple of years, 2 commissioners, and it went very successful. And everybody's so hesitant to say that because we're waiting for the ball to drop, right? Like, what's going to happen next? But it actually, we had a great partner. We had a really great project team, and it's gone well. And there's been a lot of community feedback from Vermonters, and this isn't a set it and forget it system either. So right at Go Live, they were already looking at how do we, now that we've got both modules working, how do we make sure that things are working together and that we really are showing a level of efficiency for Vermonters to be able to get their vehicles registered and their licenses to them quicker. So I would definitely call this a success now. It's on our list of successes.
My less successful registration story another time.
In the new system?
That's what worked, yes. In December, I ended up having to send a check. I know, I had to find a check.
Yes, I would have to go to them.
Put it on a piece of paper.
We can talk about that offline. I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, it was kind of odd because it looked really great otherwise.
The good news is that the data is consistent. The work within all of the branches has been really streamlined. They're able to see things that they weren't able to see before in the old system. And nothing is ever without its challenges, but from an IT standpoint, it is doing exactly what the business asked it to do and more.
That's great. That's the way they all should be, right? I mean,
We hope for that and for that.
okay. Where do you want to go from here? We sort of jumped all around on you, but
That's okay.
Yeah, so I think we should go to slide 6 and spend a little bit more time on this. So our budget has gone through some, as we've already alluded to, some major changes. In the past, we had one appropriation. We had only a few funds that supported our budget. Now, to be in more alignment in the services we're providing, we have 2 appropriations. One is specific for the core services that we spoke to under core enterprise services. So things like desktop network services, cybersecurity services. There's a list of categories at the end of the slide deck that says exactly what they are and what their purpose is. Those are all housed under one appropriation. And the major fund under that is the Communications and Information Technology Fund, which we have always had. Now we have another appropriation that speaks to the demand side of our budget. And within that appropriation, there are 3 new internal service funds. There's one that speaks specifically to items that have been done in the SLA in previous years. So things like private cloud consumption, certain enterprise application licensing, the automated call distribution is in there. Those are services that are available to all, but only some choose to consume it or have a need for it. So we bill it back based on their consumption. Then we have the second ISF, which is specific for timesheet services. This is where we were talking about that rate that's been around for going on 10 years now. These are for ADS services where we have to assign staff to maybe a project or to support the operations of a certain system. We formally call a lot of these staff embedded staff, but we call them field staff and professional services staff. And then our last one is bespoke. So I've talked about bespoke in this committee before. We're calling it customized services now. And really what that is when we need to procure hardware on behalf of an agency or some type of unique software that falls into the bespoke area.
And these would also be projects that would not show up in the IT mod fund, ones that would typically not have one-time appropriations or general funds. So anything that would be in the federal funded space or other special funds that don't align.
So if I wanted to radio track gear with GPS transmitters and have it automatically transmitted and entered into a system, that's the kind of thing that would be on the specialized jobs.
Because the tax department isn't gonna track deer.
No.
But you
It's
want.
a bounty, no.
So I think it's important to ask Kate to explain that we now have 3 more internal service funds. And this was all indicated by finance and management, how they should operate this. So there's 3 more internal service funds. And agencies will be billed based upon what they use of those 3. And they will go into those internal service funds. But this core enterprise services is for everybody. And those services then are calculated by the user, portional user. ADS has so many, or ANR has so many users, and AG has so many users, and
By head count then.
by, well, it's by user as opposed to head
It's by
count.
user.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Body.
Similar.
Yeah,
Right,
not FTE.
right, right.
And we actually looked at it as domain users, so we wanted to make sure that we were using active user counts. So that kind of equates to how you would provide those services and where those different touch points would be. So every active user would call the help desk. Every active user would try to log on, so security would be able to see that. And so it was looking at it more from active domain users.
So the advantage, as I understand it, based on the problems that you were uncovering before, is that you can calculate ahead of time. You know how many users you have. And so you can tell ANR, your charge for enterprise services is going to be a certain amount of money. And they can build that into their budget for that year, not have to worry about it, a year
Except you're
later.
getting $2 million, right? Okay.
But, so we're gonna see, I think, in budgets from various agencies, this core enterprise service on their budget will be higher than it had been before. But these other 3 areas will be much lower. And I think you figured out overall, it should come in about the same. But it will be divided up.
Right, and the second with the demand stuff will be variable depending upon if they're doing a special project or they have, use timesheet stuff and all of that.
And will those numbers be a year behind or forecast?
So the one area where we still are gonna see lag is in the SLA. That's still 12 months in arrears. It is something that we are looking at how we can change that, but for 27, it is going to be a number that's reflective of the past 12 months.
But because we moved over to CIT, dropping that SLA number as dramatically as we did, reduced the risk of the broader deficit spend. And so that's where coming into 27, we're going to put some big focus on the timesheet billing. And we'd like to see the same model applied, which is service-based cost, because security on top of a brand new modern platform is not a negotiable item. You must have security. And so if they didn't budget for it today, we can't recover for it because we're charging the timesheet. Tomorrow, it should be built as the total cost of the service, but it should also behoove them being our partners in state government, but the agencies to say, well, we've built this system, and wouldn't it be nice if we had other agencies using it? So now that reduced the total cost for that agency, but it also allows us to reduce the overhead, reduce the risk of yet another system standing up that would have been reused across the board. And that's also why we built the portfolio model too. So we've created some adjacency. Interestingly enough, AGO was one of the first offices to initiate that discussion with us with one of their tools for legal document capture.
Question, I'm going to turn it to John. the SLA, you said you're still 12 months behind on that. So are people's SLA charges going to be up for a while they're back paying stuff and paying current things?
That was what
What
the
goes down?
15 million was to cover. So for
Right.
anything that wouldn't be considered CES, they'll still see an SLA, but we're not carrying forward any CES stuff in SLA today. If they
They're not gonna
consume
have
more,
okay,
right, if they consume more, then they're gonna be charged more.
okay, great, thank you, John.
So your last example, if an agency's built something, is that built internally with your support or contracted out or a mix?
It could be a mix.
Could be a mix. Can you give an example? Just a quick one.
So I'm not a big fan of saying the names of vendors
That's
or
okay.
products.
We don't
Because
have
I don't want to
to.
endorse
Say
them by
who's
any
who,
means,
but
but
just-
there is a legal case management platform and document management platform that the Attorney General's office was using, and they were using it just for themselves. But given that it's a cloud service, it is built as an economy of scale capacity-based tool. So the more that you consume, the less cost it is per storage, per user, per whatever. And so they owned the contract, meaning that all of the appropriations and the costs go under their business office. And they don't have a mechanism to charge back agencies for IT services. So at renewal time, they worked with us to negotiate what would it take for ADS to take over this contract, because state's attorneys and sheriffs is looking to use this. And if we're all using the same contract vehicle and even same platform, it makes a lot of sense. And it reduces the cost of the AGO, reduces the incoming cost for the state's attorneys and sheriff's office. And then overall, it flattens the cost for taxpayers. So that's one of the examples there. If we're not the contract owner at ADS, there is no ability to build back. And so that's the other consideration that we're reviewing right now when it comes to the total IT landscape right now.
Thank you.
We use the word portfolio, so for example, so you got a system, say, that one agency is using, so essentially you have multiple portfolios in there, they're all using the same software, they can't see each other's stuff.
Not always, no.
You can use the same system, so you don't have to build another system.
Correct.
That you're looking for.
Our productivity suite, our email platform 365, that is an example of that. No one, unless you intentionally share it, no one can see your stuff, and we're all in the same environment.
Let's keep going where we can.
John, can you go back to 7? You didn't really get to finish the slide. So this shows the evolution of APS's budget dating back to fiscal year 22. I could have gone back further, but it just made the chart.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And this shows, our shift in 26 from our previous model that we were living under, and then the successes that we're seeing in 27 as a result of that shift. You do see that there is an overall down in the ADS budget. We moved from 137 million to 96 million in our asks this year. Some of that has to do with the changes of CES, but also some of it has to do with a lot of the bespoke activities will not live in the ADS budget any longer. And those will be living in the agencies where their direct appropriation resides.
And so that's a philosophical shift, or what, why is it like that now?
So I think that's a fantastic question for finance and management.
I got a list now. You didn't mention that yesterday, did you?
No, didn't talk about that part.
Go ahead.
So will the agency be contracting for that work?
We will be contracting for the work, but the agencies will be paying the bill for that work.
So they have something they need, you do the contract, they pay the bills? How do you know they paid the bills if you have the contract?
Not sure
We're
yet.
not sure yet.
Good.
Okay, this doesn't sound fully baked quite yet. And which services are going to the agencies? How do I describe it if I want to ask finance and management?
It would be projects and it would be, custom services is how we consider.
Services.
So unique agency-specific systems, whether or not it be at a project level or at a, maintenance and operations level.
So you would work with people at the agency to build the RFP. Get what they actually wanted. And what you pay for.
Okay, that sounds like another big deal. General fund, go ahead, John.
So there has to be some kind of time frame for that. Agency knows they need X, whatever that might be. You take care of the contract to make that work happen, and someone's gonna be in their budget for payback. So it's probably a little squirrely for first year going that direction, but
I think there's gonna be a lot that needs to be worked out. for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
so would we see you in BAA for that?
Mhm.
I'm suggesting that go that way, but it might be, right?
Possibility.
I'm really excited for the new ERP system for when it goes live. Availability of that reporting will be inherently part of the modernization effort that system is going to provide the state.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be a transfer and it could happen anytime during the year. I mean, if you have a contract and then they do their project and then
Yes.
you transfer the money. I'm not sure how that would originally be appropriated, but it would go to whoever has to pay it.
So our understanding is that the agencies will have the appropriation in their budget
They will
at the
put it in.
beginning of the year.
You'll do the contract,
Yeah.
then finalize the contract, which will obviously have a number.
Yep,
And then they would go and they pay the bill.
they would pay the bill. We would
Out of their
oversee the work.
appropriation.
We would oversee the work in connection with the business. We want to make sure that they are in lockstep with us. And when invoices come through, they will go directly to the business.
So you're consultant then on these things, these specialized things.
I guess that's one way to put it.
So they do an interagency transfer to you in order to do it?
There
No?
will be no transfer of funds.
No, this is by the agents, it's the appropriation and they pay the bill.
I think Commissioner Gresham was anticipating the opportunity to come in and describe this.
Good. We will give him that opportunity.
I might join.
You might let him know. I mean, I'm sure Autumn will be on it soon.
I think he's expecting to.
Theoretically, this should all be easier under the workday ERP.
I think with the new finance system, if it can be built in a way as what we just described, which is finance visibility and transparency, regardless of what business office it sits in, that would be my expectation, yes.
Okay. I'm just sorry, my head is jumping around again. When we looked at the projects, one of the ones I don't think was on there was BT Buys. Was that part of was that one of your projects? That was somebody else?
A project.
Okay.
We never held the funding for that, and that list that I showed you.
Yeah.
Was part of the modernization projects, and BT5 started well before that.
Oh, it did, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I know that's been a little challenging, so we can chat with AOA about that.
Yes, the IT mod fund is a specific appropriation fund, which
I think
was
already had a big hand in putting that together during COVID.
We established it
We
then,
established
yes,
it then.
with the idea that if
yes,
periodically we would put money, general fund or somebody into it, so that you would build up a pool to use from, but apparently it has not been funded. Additionally funded very much.
it is built for success, I would say. The projects that we've had in there have had great success, oversight, visibility. You have a committee in Senate, a committee in House overlooking it, and you have the joint Information Technology Committee as well that meets out of session. And you have JFO, who has Lisa Goffin today, who also is involved in reviewing each one of those projects throughout the course of the project life cycle. So projects in the IT mod fund have a lot of direct oversight across all of our organizations. And there is, because it's been around for a little while, there is a little bit of interest sitting in there, but we don't have any net new projects that would align yet to a recommendation for the use of those funds, but it is accumulating interest.
I know we're running overtime. I appreciate you guys are okay for right now. Couple more minutes in an hour. No, I think it would be fine. All right, so thank you. I want to go back to like the budget, because there isn't a lot of budget numbers. We don't have a lot of budget numbers here. But I see what your budget request was for FY 26 was 96.5 million. Is there a request for 27?
26 was 137 million.
Yes.
Well, this says 80 as FY 2026 budget request on page three.
The chart didn't get updated.
That should say
Good
27.
catch. Nobody has seen that, and we have presented to 3 committees. Thank you for finding it. But we manually update that, so thank you.
So that should say 2027?
Yes, 27.
Yes.
Where can we find any sort of comparison from 26 to 27?
We can send,
One way of numbers.
I can send you the link that we provided last fiscal, where this,
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be good.
happy to do that.
We don't want to not see any numbers. We just want us to see more than the ups and downs.
And I think we've spent a lot of time talking about what was and what is, which is
Yeah.
why on slide 7, we were showing that visual graph so that you could see that
Right.
demand versus allocation piece, where the changes are happening and what's led up to that point, which as you start looking at those numbers, being able to look at it from those buckets, because what you'll also see when, on page 3, yours doesn't move that way, on the snapshot dashboard, is that we had 4 funds that were associated under that budget request number, and now we have 8. So it is definitely,
Yes.
it's definitely a difference between the two.
Right. And I don't know what professional resourcing means.
That's the timesheet. So calling out timesheet explicitly as its own fund area.
Right. Anything else for these folks?
I think we should point out your very last sheet indicates the core enterprise services.
Yes, so these are the
Funding sources.
These are the 14 categories, what their funding sources and what we would like to be able to provide in this session is what the dollar amount is for each one of those funds. We're working with finance and management on those numbers right now.
So those particular ones that show general fund.
Yeah.
Are Derek's
Correct. That's where the general fund is applied.
is what the $9 million is shown on the very first page. They show funding sources and there's
Right.
$9 million.
Right.
And that was covered.
And this is,
Plan. Yeah.
right, and the 9.8 million that are being extracted from other agencies and departments.
That's what we've been told, yes.
Okay.
It's right.
I feel like yeah, not your fault. I feel like we're missing a few little pieces of the puzzle right now. So I appreciate that.
Correct.
Yes, go ahead.
So it would be interesting to see, like last sheet, Congress Core Enterprise Services, the same, we're counting the demand, which you have to label as demand services. So on the chart on page 7, demand. Yeah.
Like if you took page 6 and had the three other ones and had
Yes.
where they all come from.
We're all, what are the numbers associated with the color, I guess it's kind of a red bar on page 7. And what parts of these various CES and post-consumption and professional and field resources and customer services. What makes out that far? You know, what
Yes. You have those
Yep,
numbers.
yep, we can supply that. Yep.
what is CES plus consumption?
Those are the foundational services, but agencies that want more than what we have set as a baseline.
As distinct from but
Correct. So let's say SharePoint storage. There are some organizations who exceed their capacity of SharePoint storage that they're allocated in core enterprise services, and we charge them extra for it. We use SLA as a vehicle for that.
Or what, there's something. Go ahead.
To you,
Oh.
don't you think we probably should have a basic up and down sheet?
Yeah, or some sort of budget numbers, yes.
I think maybe
So,
when we give direction to people,
yeah, well, we didn't say don't do it. We just said we're not gonna spend all our time on it. So, yeah, we're all learning. So you're gonna send a link to some other budget numbers. That would be great. And then, if we have more questions, Marty is your, liaison, and it sounds like we'll get finance and management in here anyway for some other lingering questions that we have. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You're gonna stay live. Tax department, if you need to take a break, come back, but after this, then we will have a break, and before we go to the floor. Andrew, if you'd like to come up. The chairs are warmed up for you.
We should have Maud. If she's not there, I did bring my computer just in case. There. Thank you so much, Maud. From the mothership.
The mothership.
133. Fancy. Maud, do you mind putting it in full screen mode in the bottom right? There's thank you so much.
Right, we're just dealing with other little challenges happening. So welcome. Have the tax department with us today. And so if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and we have these lovely, it's a lot of red ink that's being used. I wonder if they're, BGS or whoever does all the supplies realizes how much red ink. It's beautiful.
Argon on it. Yeah. Don't get me started. I'm not a fan of the photo. My name's Bill Scholdice, the fourth, Commissioner of the Vermont State Tax Department.
Welcome, and you, Bill, you have it, and Andrew.
Andrew Stein, Chief Operating Officer. Hey, everyone.
You have not been in our committee before, Commissioner, as the tax commissioner.
That's correct. I was in this room about 50 years ago
When there was a co-room?
for that, to be fitted for my page jacket. Subsequent to that, I was here when it was a coat room. I didn't realize until I was walking over with Andrew that it is now a committee room,
Just
appropriations.
absolutely. So we'll go around and introduce ourselves since this is your first time in our commission.
Appreciate that.
Dave Iacovoni from Morristown, and I represent Lemoyle, Washington District. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Welcome, John Kosenska from Burke, and I represent the Essex, Caledonia.
Mike Nigro, I represent Bennington and Pownell, and tax department is on my portfolio.
Sorry about the confusion with not being earlier in the week.
This is Tom Stevens from Waterbury. I'm Marty Feltus from Caledonia 3, London.
Robin Shy from Middlebury.
Tiffany from Burlington.
Charles Squirrel, Underhill, and Jericho.
Wayne Rush, Berkshire, Franklin, Richford, and Highgate.
Hi, I'm Mike Morwicki from the Wyndham Ford District of Putney and Dummerston. And I hope we can prove to you that the room's being put to better use than money.
I like that.
And the other chair is Lynn Dickinson, who's from St. Albans Town.
I'm going to make some introductory remarks and then hand it over to Andrew, if that's all right. But I've been the tax commissioner now for about a year. I just missed the opportunity to present the budget a year ago. But it's my pleasure to be here. Some of you may recall that before this, I was the CEO of Vermont Teddy Bear. Before that, I was the CEO of Vermont Country Store. And before that, I worked for Governor Dean in the Agency of Commerce. But one of the things that drew me back to state government was Governor Scott asking me to meet with the department and better understand the work they were doing. And quite honestly, the tax department wasn't something that rolled off the end of my tongue as being my next career move. I said to the governor, I hate taxes. And he said, yes, that's why we want you here. But what I did was I interviewed with the department and I was looking at really three things. I was looking at the quality department from a personnel perspective. And Andrew was able to provide me with employee satisfaction surveys, and hard to believe, but the tax department is like tops in state government.
Your predecessor ran a very good shop.
And I'm noting, I inherited it. I did nothing to create it, but I take
You just
it.
had to keep
great, yeah, with great honor. I aim to keep it. But good group of employees who really care about what they're doing and have fun doing it, which was easy to sign up on. The second thing that drew me to the department was, oftentimes you'll inherit a job and you'll find out that technology is out of date and it's just an accident waiting to happen. And when you, as you do know, we're really inextricably linked to the IRS, pulling down that information from the IRS, dealing carefully with taxpayer information, social security numbers. That is nothing that I wanted to take on if it wasn't up to snuff. And really pleased to see that this department's been able to modernize and has a great working relationship with the IRS to be able to do the people's work of processing their tax return. We announced yesterday, 26th, that it was the opening of tax season. And what I refer to think of it as is tax refund season. I want to get that money back into taxpayers' pockets as fast as I can for those who deserve it, and set up a system for those that have to pay taxes that can do so efficiently and without a lot of consternation. But the third part of the reason I came to the department was it has a strong thought process and care for Vermont becoming affordable and the public policy that underpins that. As we all know, we're working with and dealing with property tax issues that are continuing to rise beyond what people deem to be reasonable. And if you take a look at the $1 billion it costs now more than it did 20 years ago to educate our kids, if you look at the fact there's 15,000 less kids in the system, and if you look at the fact that our scores are declining, that was one of the things that drew me back to state government as I was supposed to be heading to retirement, was to help grapple with that significant issue that's facing Vermont. I have one out of my 3 kids live in Vermont, and everyone talks about interest rates being high and how that's keeping kids from starting the American dream of having a family and buying a house. The average age of somebody buying a house in the state of Vermont now is 40 years of age, well beyond what it was not that long ago. And I can tell you, as my daughter went through the process of buying her first home, the thing that left her beyond the reach of being able to afford the home she wanted was the percentage of tax that was needed to be paid to service that mortgage and to own that home. So if we want to decrease our population decline, if we want to make Vermont more affordable, dealing with our tax policy, dealing with our property tax issues is something I care deeply about, and one of the reasons why I took this job, and have the pleasure of working with Andrew to help get us there, along with my deputy, Rebecca Samaroff, and just a really, really great, thoughtful department. So thank you for having me. I apologize for the long windup, but this is something I care deeply about and pretty passionate about as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I also just want to take a beat to acknowledge our new commissioner, Bill Schuldice, as well. It's not easy to come in and step into the void that was created when we lost Craig, our former commissioner, who had been with the department a long time, who had been in leadership roles for years, who was beloved, and we're very grateful to Craig. But Bill, to his credit, came in with a ton of humility, a ton of people smarts as well, and hunger to say, hey, what can we do even better than we're doing now? And I think he's done a great job of supporting the areas where we're already strong. He's put a heavy emphasis on employee engagement. This year, the level of rigor with which we dug into the employee engagement survey and then generated an action plan and reported it back to employees was greater than ever before. And that really built on a foundation that I feel like Kai Samsom, now at DFR, kind of started. Craig and our leadership team kind of took to another level. And Bill said, we can take this even further. Let me give you some examples of things I've seen throughout my career. And so I think we're moving in a really positive direction as a department. We started in a great place, and I think we're moving in a better place. There's always areas for improvement, and bringing in an outside perspective has been helpful to bring up fresh set of eyes to things. So want to thank you, Commissioner, for all you've done in your first year.
Thank you, Andrew. That's a long way of saying the only thing I could do now is screw it up.
There you go.
Ahmad, could you please flip to the mission? Thank you. So we presented this slide and our core values numerous times. And since we have limited time, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. But from an alignment perspective, from a connecting the dots perspective, it's really important for our entire department to understand what the mission of this organization is, to serve Vermonters by administering our tax laws fairly and efficiently, to help taxpayers understand and comply with their state tax obligations. And then we put our main strategic goals into three main buckets, which is be a model of service-oriented tax administration. And I would go a step further and say that we really strive to be a model of service-oriented government in general. And we work with other departments and agencies around state government to do that. Reduce the tax gap, and we really do this by emphasizing voluntary compliance. Voluntary compliance is the backbone of Vermont's tax code, the federal tax code. By educating taxpayers, we're able to make extraordinary gains in terms of reducing the tax gap. We do use audits and other forms of collections, various tools to ensure that equity throughout the tax code, but we really put a heavy emphasis on voluntary compliance. And then we want to have a healthy workplace. We put a heavy emphasis on the health of our employees and the general culture in the workplace. Next, core values. Our four main core values: service, integrity, growth, and community. We have examples here. You can look at them. Service, we lean heavily into this one. Integrity as well. And sometimes, these when we're evaluating a service initiative or a safeguards initiative that can fall under integrity, those can kind of push and pull a little bit at each other. Sometimes something that's a little more efficient we might be sacrificing on the integrity front, but sometimes we might say, hey, this is really important. We need to shore this up and have a slight dip in efficiency somewhere. Sometimes though, and we've had some great success on the tech front. We have opportunities to improve service and improve integrity at the same time. Growth is a value that we're going to lean heavily into this year. This is an area where our employees have said they think we can do better. We've listened, and you'll see in our budget, it reflects some initiatives in this space. And community, we strive to have a strong community at the department, and everything we really do at the department is in service of the communities of the state of Vermont. So connecting those dots for everyone. All right, next slide, please. So this is high level pie chart. It's not really a pie chart. I forget what you call these categorization charts now, but to show what our overall budget is, $38 million. And this includes our various special funds. And this represents a 2.34% increase from the current fiscal year to next across all funds. 90% of our budget is salaries and benefits and IT. And really, that's the bread and butter of what we do. We try to attract and retain the most talented team that we can. And by pairing them with technology that works, and some technology works better than others, but in general, our core technology is working very, very well. We're able to stand up a range of service initiatives, policies, and tight deadlines. Every year last year we collected over $3 billion in revenue for the state of Vermont, and we administered hundreds of millions of dollars in appropriations through our tech stack. So that's the heart of what we do. And then when these categories, this is kind of how we view it at a high level. You've got rent and building services, you've got printing and postage, you've got internal services, and I will say our ADS expenses fall under IT. We don't put them under typical internal services. And then that's a range of things from training to other personal services, et cetera. So what does our budget get us? I'm going to give you the current initiatives. This is next year, realizing this is the FY27 budget, but right now, current initiatives that I think are worth spotlighting: implementing new policies. Every year, this department is asked to implement a suite of new policies and do it with pretty tight turnarounds. later in the budget book, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we do have an update with the range of policies that we were asked to implement last year and the status of those. And everything there is either implemented or it's on track. Some of them are multi-year implementations. And, personal income tax credit and exemption updates were a big one for this past year. There were updates to the Vermont child tax credit, earned income tax credit, retirement income exemptions like the Social Security income, civil service retirement, military retirement and survivor benefit income. We also had a Vermont veteran tax credit, a new refundable tax credit to implement this year. And so that's a lot of development work in our new system. It's a lot of updates to our forms. It's a lot of testing. And to make the tax season go well, which just opened this past week, there's a lot of upfront work that goes into that, a lot of updating instructions, a lot of outreach to various constituencies. And a big initiative for us this next year is going to be looking for ways in these areas with, if you really look over the past 10 years, there's been a pretty extraordinary expansion in terms of credits and exemptions and just general benefits for vulnerable populations in Vermont. And something that Commissioner Schuldeis is challenging us on heading into next year that we're going to do a pretty deep dive initiative on is how can we make this easier for people? We do a lot on education and outreach, but where can we do even more? And are there areas where we could maybe automate some of this for folks, where we can do some front end validations? And we've done some things like that in the past. There's no doubt opportunities to improve in that space. Then new local option tax towns I put on here because that's a big thing. Every year now we're having I don't remember how many we had last year. I want to say 6, somewhere between 6 and 8. I could get you the exact number. We know that there's 7 municipalities that are looking at this that are saying they're going to vote on it next year that have reported that to us. Another 7 that are exploring it, and then there's even more that have asked for data on this. So this is a big area for municipalities who I'm sure you all are very aware are also looking for money for their budgets. Maintain high service levels this tax season. This is a big deal. Personal income tax refunds for the 4th straight year, we issued 95% of timely filed refunds within 45 days by June 1. That's a really key performance metric for us. After June 1, we have to start paying interest on those. So from a state budget perspective, that's important, but even more important is just from a service level perspective. We want to get Vermonters the money that they're owed as quickly as possible. We can get into some of our other metrics later on, but one that's not in here is our phone data. We handled over 115,000 calls in calendar year 2025. And the average call wait time was 1 minute and 5 seconds, which we shaved about 21 seconds off our average call wait time, which was already from talking with other commissioners around the country is already kind of best in class for states.
And better than the IRS.
Way better than the IRS. Yes, way better than the IRS. And not to pick on the IRS, they have been defunded for decades.
Tuesday morning at 7:30 is a really good time to get a live person.
Oh, that's good to know.
Now everybody's going to call, but Monday, you can't have a call.
You just gave up a secret.
Yeah. I don't need to call them anymore, so I hope. So you can benefit.
Another big initiative for us is continuing to modernize the property tax system in current use. Our main current use system just shifted from an older legacy system into our main V-tax system. We've been in the middle, and you might have heard from some towns on this and others. We've been in the middle of a larger property tax IT system transition, which frankly is one of the more bumpy implementations that we've had in a long time at our department. It began in 2020. It's still ongoing. Frankly, it's a very difficult system to implement in large part because our property tax system is not it's not the most standard. It's not the most centralized. And it's a tough project. It's not that project is not a super expensive project considering how complex it is. And so we're working to iron that out, and long term, we will continue to figure things out on that front. Complete a new scanning system. When I first came to the tax department in the spring of 2021, we had a scanning system that had fallen off track. We ended up deciding to terminate that contract. We went back out to bid. We actually went through 2 RFP processes. I'm happy to report that project was just completed, and we've gained a ton of new efficiencies from that. That new system is way more efficient than our older one, and we're set up to have support in that space for the long term. VTax version upgrade, that's our bread and butter integrated tax system. 35 plus tax types are in that system. It's the same base system that Finland, New Zealand, California, New York City use. It's called GenTax. It's by this company, Fast Enterprises, that built the DMV system, and that's now building the DOL system as well. And we have an older version of that system, the one that predates the DMV system, and we're going to the version that the DOL system is on, which is the most up-to-date core version. And that's going to be a big project for our department this year. We're major modernization in code. The old code structure is getting updated with a much more modern code, C# for any of you, coding wonks out there. And that's going to help with, frankly, younger developers are learning that in school. There's a range of functionality that will come with that as well. As part of that version upgrade, one of the things that I spotlighted when Emily and I chatted with you all last week about the childcare contribution, we'll have the functionality to be able to direct withholding taxpayers to pay the childcare contribution at the same time as withholding, which should hopefully in a couple of years alleviate that big end of year fund transfer that we've been grappling with. Emphasis on employee growth this year, create an education and organization development team. We're reclassifying 2 positions to be able to focus on these types of issues. And we have a suite of needs that employees and directors and others have flagged for us at a leadership level. And we take this seriously. Growth is a core value of ours. We want to support our department's employees in terms of evolving with the economy, evolving with technology. And frankly, we deal with a lot of complex matters. And when we bring in somebody new who doesn't have as much experience, after somebody who's been in the game for 30 years is retired, it's helpful to have a training program in place to help bring them up to speed. And then we're also planning to create a cross-training and mentorship program this year. We're looking to expand taxpayer feedback and service opportunities as well. I mentioned one of them before. On the feedback front, we're piloting some surveys this year to solicit feedback in terms of our service levels, how we're doing. We're working to complete a new COOP space with A&R and BGS. This is one that I think this committee will like to hear about, which is our department for many, many years had a COOP space up in Williston on Hurricane Lane, and we were essentially paying for vacant space that wasn't being used. When the floods impacted our building at 133 State, we did not go to Hurricane Lane. We stood up a COOP space up by National Life. And coming out of that, from what we learned from there, we realized number one, we don't want to sit on vacant space that isn't being used typically. We don't want taxpayers to have to foot that bill. And the chance that we do need this, going all the way up to Williston, moving all of our operations up there really isn't ideal either. So we worked with BGS and the Agency of Natural Resources, really, really grateful for Secretary Moore and Kim Greenwood, the COO there, for being so open to this. And what we're doing, we've actually started already. We're building a secure area in National Life that A&R can use. So we're footing the bill for the capital expenses, and we use carry forward funding for this from last year's budget because we had some surplus funding. And we're going to have a secure space that meets IRS and state safeguard requirements. And A&R can use this space, but in the event of a COOP issue, like floods or a fire or something along those lines, if we have to pivot out of 133, we'll be able to do that, and A&R will shift out of that space and it'll be ready to go. The locks and everything can just be turned right on by National Life, and it will meet all of those safeguard requirements. So we're excited about that. And in which case we're signing an MOU. We would then pay the bill for that space if we're using it and they're not using it. But essentially there's no space just sitting vacant that taxpayers are paying for in the event that we need it. And then advanced tax season review and continuous improvement exercise. I put this on here. After last year's tax season, we created a new continuous improvement exercise to engage with employees around things that they thought went well and things that they thought we could do better. So essentially taking more feedback from employees and turning it into recommendations for our leadership team that then we can take action on.
So that's what's A&R going to use that for? So part of the, what's A&R's use that space you're talking about?
A&R is using it right. I want to say I defer to them. I haven't spoken with them about that space in a while. I think Forest and Parks are in there right now.
So you're not sharing a system, it's just a space.
It's just a space, and essentially, if there is, we did have to install our network there. So if we shift in there, we'll have to configure some network ports and things like that. But essentially with drop ceilings and stuff, you can just have those wires sitting up there and then pull them down. Yes. Yeah, no problem. Okay. Next slide, please. So on the ups and downs front, this is just a summary of ups and downs. And those in parentheses are down. So salary and wages are up, health insurance is up, retirement is up, other benefits and workers' comp is down slightly. And I have to look into exactly what that is. Off the top of my head, I forget exactly why that's down slightly. Decrease in contractual services, that's driven by two, there's two main drivers of that. One is we're coming off a series of IT project implementations this year. And the VTAX version upgrade that I mentioned before is we have a multi-year appropriation, the end of a multi-year appropriation from the Computer Modernization Fund, which we've been saving that balance for the VTAX version upgrade so that we wouldn't have to come in and ask for like a big increase this year. And that fund has the money in it to foot the bill for this. And that's going to span 2 fiscal years, that version upgrade. So what this is, it's a down due to IT implementations being wrapped up. And it's also a down due to, we're part of the Multi-State Tax Commission's Joint Audit Committee. And soon after we joined, California also joined. And California foots a nice big bill for those resources. And so that dropped our annual expense down quite a bit from what we had budgeted.
Anything else they could join?
Right.
It's a good question. It's a good question.
Good work in other areas.
So
They're the 8th largest economy in the world.
yeah, so we're great. We're grateful for them and that. Increase in accessibility costs. Frankly, we started paying these costs last year. We used some carry forward funds. We've really expanded our accessibility offerings, and all of our envelopes to taxpayers have 14 different languages on them now that direct taxpayers with how to access those accessibility resources. I want to give a big shout out. It was our former communications director who now works for the Harvard Business School, but our current communications director, Kate Canizzo, who is an absolute all-star, has really taken this to a whole other level. And she has a background in ADA and accessibility communication, and she's been wonderful on this front. So last year we spent a bit over $22,000 on interpreters. And in the past, there was no budget line for this. And so with the little bit of wiggle room that we had this year, we added $30,000 there. And I just got a request to approve some interpretation for a language that's outside of those 14 to help a taxpayer, and we're going to do that. So it's translation and interpretation, but the interpreters, it's a big deal to have a professional interpreter helping somebody on the phone. An increase in education and training contracts, that's in response to the employee engagement survey and other requests from employees. One thing we're already doing that I can give you an example of where funds like this will go to, our compliance division is trying out this software called CP Edge, which is like a CPE online platform for auditors and tax professionals to help our auditors and tax collectors come up to speed in some technical areas of their work. And we have some ideas for other things, other projects, but ultimately that education and organizational development team, they're going to oversee a lot of that work. The increase in service of papers, if I could take that off of here, I would, but I needed to balance this out so that it reflected the same as the ups and downs that you have. And for some reason, this falls under personal services, but this is just to align. This is various paper services, that, yeah, we've been spending over our budget appropriation. I want to say it's like 7,000 or 8,000 and it went up to like 11,000. We don't spend a ton on paper, but that's just in the
Like
last.
serving people with paper?
It is sometimes, yes. And I have a note as to exactly what service is paid. For process servers or sheriff departments for serving legal documents like summons, complaints, etc.
That's what I did, yeah. You didn't pay your taxes and after a few months, yeah, there you go, Marty.
And then what else do we have up there? Net operating expenses, that includes fee for space, some ADS charges, other internal service funds, education supplies, education and training expenses related to conferences and travel for attending those, general liability insurance, office equipment, those types of things. Next slide, please. And I just like to put in the major category, the ups and downs. It's driven by salaries and benefits. That's largely outside of our control. Yeah, there's really no surprises here except IT's down. And really, IT is one of those things where it can be down one year and it can be up significantly another year. And it all depends on where we are in an implementation cycle. And the department used to receive 5 to 10 year appropriations as part of our computer modernization fund. And frankly, that was extremely helpful during a big build out of technology at our department. We still have lots of IT expenses, but we don't have any of those huge implementations right now. And so several years ago, we shifted that fund to the annual budgeting process. I want to say it was about 4 years ago. And so as a result of that, you are going to see swings year over year in that line item. Yeah.
I'm paying attention to the time because I know you have a hard stop. But let's make sure we get to your different areas too and what your goals are for the.
Sure. Are there, in the last 20 minutes, are there areas that you all would like us to focus on?
I think success is great, and also are there any other, you've talked about some new initiatives, maybe those are the new initiatives because of the tax changes, so maybe we've already reviewed those. Anything else you've decided to cut or significantly change?
No, I don't.
You guys are kind of this pretty steady.
Yeah.
This kind of regular.
Madam Chair, I'll tell you this, when Andrew got done, he said, I build the budget and then I'll present it to you. I said, oh, okay, that sounds good. And he brought the budget into me and he said, okay, this line here, that's set by collective bargaining agreement. This line here is set by business. I said, Andrew, in $38 million, how much do I have at my discretion? He said, none.
About 300,000 maybe.
But so it's good to see. I do like the part where you tell us about the different areas and how you're doing because we talk about our Vermonters paying their fair share of taxes that they're supposed to be paying. What's that budget gap?
Yeah.
How we're going to rebate, what are you seeing for trends and changes and those kinds of other programs? So I think that's the kind of thing.
Sure.
We'd love to hear about.
So why don't I, the next slide, I'll just be very quick on the next. Maude, can you shift to the next slide? After that, spotlight on success. Oh, before that, back one. So I do, no, one more. Spotlight on success. Thank you. So these are our employee engagement scores from this year. And while we did certainly receive scores that we, especially in the growth area where we realized we can do more in this space, we also received a lot of very, very positive scores, a lot that we realized, hey, these are strengths that we need to build from. So I put a spotlight on that here because without strong employee engagement, we don't have any of the success in the other metrics that we look at. So moving forward, I'll go quickly through these performance metrics, and then I think our grants would be helpful to look at really quickly. None of them are true grants. That's why I say grants, but that's how they're done.
And if you're, and some of the tax things and the grants, but like how the childcare contribution thing is going. I know we have some stuff about adjustment and what else you're seeing in the way of, you have a bunch of different tax changes, and it's maybe too early for half of those things, but just.
Yeah, so I think childcare contribution, I think the implementation has gone really well. I think JFO nailed that estimate. I I don't know exactly what the discrepancy was between the forecast and the actuals, but the actuals came in almost exactly what GM had forecasted. That, that I think it's going to be pretty steady, low 80 millions in terms of the revenue that you're going to get from that. As a result of that, we did have to reduce we have some positions from that, and we have a small, we have like a $200,000 reduction, I believe. I can tell you the exact reduction in terms of what we're using that fund for administratively. But so that's a change. Have it somewhere. But it's something like that. I would say, why don't we go to the grants? Let me pull up our budget book and I'll tell you what page that's on, because I think that's going to get into some of these issues that you're interested in and ties into some of the BAA issues that we talked about. So grants are they begin on page 61. And that's with the pilot fund. And I understand, Chris, you presented already on the pilot fund. I understand.
Great spreadsheet.
Yeah. Oh, you're too kind. And I understand that there's a proposal from this committee to shift the pilot payments from the general fund, or not the pilot payments, but the reappraisal and listing payments from the pilot fund from the general fund to the pilot fund this year rather than next year.
That's right.
So I haven't heard any opposition to that, but my understanding is, the administration, the secretary, commissioner of finance management, they like to look at everything on balance when it shifts over to the Senate. So, but essentially that's taking the proposal from the administration and just moving it.
Right, because we have this pension thing.
I hear you.
And it works. I mean, the projections that Chris put together for us show that even at the end of 2017, after fully paying all the pilot stuff, is an $11 or $12 million balance in the pilot fund. So it's not exactly, unlike our other special funds, it's healthy.
Yeah. So stay tuned for the Secretary of Administration and Finance Management in terms of their thoughts on that. But appreciate you all flagging that. So in terms of pilot this year, in the current year that we're in, it came in under budget, and these are based on estimates. And so it came in, I have it somewhere. It's in that spreadsheet that Chris shared with you all. I think it's like 11.3 million. It came in this year. We have it right here. Anyways, it's below 12.2 million. And so when our analyst was forecasting it for this year, she felt confident that 12.2 million was good for this year. So if you go to the next slide, it's correctional facilities at $40,000. The slide after that is the homeowner rebate. And that's down from 19 million for the same reason that budget adjustment is down.
So you kept it down at the lowest level. Yeah.
Well, it was, frankly, I knew we had a budget adjustment act request for the renter credit, and I saw this come in for our FY27 budget, and I asked our senior fiscal analyst, very talented guy, if he could update it for this fiscal year, and he thought it would be about the same. So, I mean, the methodology that he uses is a consensus one used with the Joint Fiscal Office. So, again, this is the appropriation to make municipalities whole for the circuit breaker for property tax credits. So those are families and individuals homeowners earning under $47,000 a year in household income that qualify for their local property taxes to be covered by this. So
Different topic.
Okay. As incomes are moving out of this space because it's not adjusted for inflation, this appropriation is going down. Reappraisal and listing payments is the next slide on page 64.
The number should look familiar.
Yes. And it's pretty level. You've got 2 per parcel payments in there. You've got $100,000 for lister education, and that's based on a statutory provision. And then you have 70,000 for grand list assistance for utility valuations.
It used to be separate. Yeah, I remember that being,
And we do have a commercial appraisal and litigation assistance program that's paid for out of the local option tax fee fund. And that's about $800,000 between the two administrative resources and the contracts. And that's really coming up to speed now. It's taken a couple of years to, design it and get it up to speed and have vendors in place. And I do think in the future, we will explore this $70,000 in the utility valuations, getting folded in with that and treating utility and commercial valuations.
It's kind of, it's large and unusual properties.
Mhm.
Right?
Totally.
How do you do a college campus or?
Totally. Yes, a mine or, it's highly specialized appraisers.
Right. That would make sense to put that down too.
Next slide, we have municipal current use, and this is the general fund money that makes municipalities whole for the current use program.
And that's staying pretty stable.
Yep.
And this is separate from what gets deducted from the education property tax, because this is the total amount around 77 million?
It's over 70 million. I don't have the exact amount in front of
I
me.
saw somewhere 77. Anyway,
Right.
so 21 of that gets covered
By the general.
by the general fund for municipalities, and the rest of it is in the it's a deduction from the education fund, so property taxes elsewhere go up to make up for the current use.
If you were to translate it into an exemption, it's around when we've looked at it in the past, it's like around an 85% exemption.
Yeah, and I think it's on the education fund outlook now these days. We actually put in a line for, we're deducting the current use.
I don't think so. I think it just doesn't show up at all.
Well, at one point, we actually added it as a line on the fund outlook. We may not be there anymore, but there was a time, last biennium certainly that we had.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll double check. I thought it doesn't go there, so it doesn't show up as a.
Well,
As a revenue.
Yeah, I think at one point we tried to make it a little more transparent so people understood that that was an effect, that has an effect on property.
Yeah, and there's a great overview of current use and the history of the program and trends over time and the use values for forested lands versus ag lands and the PBR annual report, which is going to be published. I think it's coming out this week.
Oh, good.
Oh, it looks like that before.
The next slide, page 66, is the renter. It's in the system as the renter rebate, but it's actually a renter credit. And this is going up for the same reasons that we talked about in the Budget Adjustment Act.
So level funded from budget adjustment, basically. I think.
I have to,
Oh, no, there's
I think
a 2 million increase, not a million.
yeah, I think it's up 500,000 from, it was 1.5 million in the PAA and then, because this gets adjusted for inflation as well. So ideally it comes in under that. So those are the main program areas that I wanted to spotlight. We have about 8 minutes. Any questions, anything you want us to focus
I wanted to jump back. I thought I heard you mention V-Trans when you're talking about systems. I know they have problems with their purchase and use tax collection stuff. Are you involved at all with helping them?
I'm not aware of what's going on there. There's a key VMB system though that I do know is supported by the same vendor that built our system.
Just vendor support, so you might have some cross-linking.
Yeah. I don't know. I defer to AOT entirely. That's all.
Thanks.
That's fair.
Questions? Thanks, Mike, you're good on for now. Anything else you would like us to know?
I think we're pretty good. We appreciate this committee's support and certainly appreciate the governor's support and the Commissioner of Finance and Management and Secretary of Administration support on our budget every year. And we're responsible for administering a lot of policy to help a range of Vermonters. And I think we do it with pretty high levels of service and no doubt there's opportunities for improvement. So if any of you see any, please feel free to reach out to me or Commissioner Schuldeis and would love to hear about it and see what we can do.
Great, well, thanks for all the work you do and
Thank you.
great to see how successful you've been.
Thank you.
All right, and welcome when you're into your new job. All right, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Committee, we are we are on the floor at 3:30 with budget adjustments and other things. So we will be on the floor today. Tomorrow's Friday. We will do the floor in the morning. It turns out we're going to have a little amendment to our budget adjustment, which I will mention on the floor. Do you want to explain, Tiff? What?
Yeah.
Just so you're aware when I say it, you won't go, oh my God, what's going on?
I was hopeful this could just be considered a scrivener's error, but
Sure,
that's
is it?
$45,000 that goes to HIV syringe service programs needed to be spread out across the three different organizations. And in the original budget that I had, it wasn't.
We just went to Vermont Cares by
Vermont
itself.
Cares, and so it is very technical.
Just spread out.
We're just spreading it out
Yes,
over
it's still
three.
Bottom line is the
45,000.
same.
Yeah, so there's no, but don't, I just didn't want you to be surprised that we're gonna have this amendment. This apparently has to be under my name, so that, there we
No,
are.
it does, I don't know that it does. It could be-
Well, maybe because I've been presenting the bill, it's just easier for me to have the amendment or something. Oh, so maybe we need to vote on the amendment. Do we want
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
to at least do a straw? Is there a way, do we have this electronically?
Brady gave it to me physically, I don't know if.
Wait, are we meeting before the floor? We aren't meeting tomorrow morning.
So
Do we have to do it today or do we need?
Well, we don't need possession of the bill,
It can be a floor amendment,
but they're gonna ask whether we voted for this or not.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, everybody sit here, we'll go off live for 5 minutes.